Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes.
Okay.
Today,
Oh, today's a good one.
it is a good one.
Yeah.
We are diving deep into Walter M. Miller Jr.'s A Canticle for Leibowitz, a science fiction classic
It's a classic.
that grapples with some seriously
I
thought-provoking themes about humanity, knowledge, and faith.
It's not your typical post-apocalyptic story. It spans centuries. Following this Albertian order of Leibowitz, as they strive to preserve knowledge after a nuclear war has plunged the world into a new dark age. But it's not just about survival. It digs deep into the cyclical nature of history, the tension between faith and science, and the enduring human capacity for both creation and destruction.
And you know me, I love a book that asks the big questions.
Big questions. Yeah.
For anyone listening who hasn't read A Canticle for Leibowitz, let me quickly set the stage. We're talking centuries after humanity basically nuked itself back to the Stone Age. This period is called the simplification, where anything remotely scientific was destroyed, and intellectuals were targeted. It's a world that views knowledge as the root of all evil.
Right into this world emerges the Albertian order of Leibowitz, these monks who dedicate their lives to preserving whatever scraps of knowledge they can find. Think blueprints, diagrams, even old shopping lists, all copied meticulously without always understanding what they mean.
It's like they're safeguarding the embers of civilization, hoping to rekindle the flame someday, right?
Precisely, and that's what makes their story so compelling. Miller takes us through these three distinct eras, each reflecting a different stage in humanity's relationship with knowledge.
Okay, so let's jump into the first part, Fiat Homo. We meet Brother Francis, a novice monk in the order, living a simple life of prayer and copying in the desert. What's fascinating to me is that despite his world rejecting knowledge, he seems innately drawn to it.
It's almost like a subconscious pull towards something humanity instinctively knows is important. And this pull leads him to a pivotal discovery, a fallout shelter containing relics from the past.
It's a powerful moment when he finds blueprints, signed by Leibowitz himself, right? He believes he stumbled onto a sacred artifact. But then here's where it gets interesting. The back of the blueprint is just covered in doodles.
Yes. It's such a brilliant way for Miller to juxtapose the monk's reverence for knowledge with the almost mundane reality of its origins. This blueprint that Brother Francis treats with such awe is literally just a scrap of paper that Leibowitz used for sketching.
It's like a reminder that even the most profound knowledge can come from the simplest, most human places.
Absolutely. And the theme of finding meaning in the mundane runs throughout the book. But let's not forget the mysterious pilgrim who seems to guide Brother Francis towards this shelter. His presence adds another layer to the story, this hint of the divine or perhaps just incredibly good fortune.
He's like a phantom, appearing at critical moments to nudge the monks towards knowledge, then vanishing just as quickly. It definitely makes you wonder if there's a larger force at play, guiding humanity's path.
That's one of the questions Miller leaves us grappling with. Is it fate, divine intervention, or just pure chance that leads to the preservation of knowledge? But regardless, the pilgrim's presence highlights the almost fragile nature of knowledge and the forces seen and unseen that contribute to its survival.
And it's not all smooth sailing for Brother Francis. He faces resistance from his own abbey. The abbot is deeply skeptical of his discovery, suspicious of the pilgrim, and fearful of the knowledge itself.
He even whips poor Brother Francis, trying to force him to recant his story. You can feel the tension between faith and reason playing out here. The monks are dedicated to preserving knowledge, but terrified of its potential to disrupt their way of life, and perhaps even lead to another catastrophe.
Because after all, they're living in the shadow of the simplification. The memory of knowledge leading to destruction is still fresh in their minds.
Exactly. It's this fear, this inherent mistrust of intellectual pursuits that drives their initial resistance. They see knowledge as a double-edged sword, a source of both enlightenment and potential ruin.
But Brother Francis persists, even at the risk of being seen as delusional. His faith in the importance of knowledge remains unshaken.
He embodies that almost primal human drive to understand, to seek meaning and purpose even in the face of adversity. It's a drive that ultimately prevails as even the abbot eventually recognizes the value in what Francis has found.
The blueprints become a treasured relic, a symbol of their mission. And this marks a turning point for the Abbey, moving them from passive preservation to active exploration of knowledge.
And it sets the stage for a dramatic shift in the next part of the book. But before we jump ahead, there's a scene that always sticks with me. It's when Brother Francis is deep in the shelter, reciting a Latin prayer, O inscrutabilis scrutator animarum.
Oh yeah, and the pilgrim cuts him off so abruptly. He's like, All right, then suit yourself. I'll mark the rock and set a stake by it. Try it or not as you please. It's almost as if he's frustrated with humanity's slow progress.
That line is so powerful. It underlines the urgency of the situation. The world is fragile, time is fleeting, and knowledge is constantly at risk. It's a call to action for humanity to wake up and learn from its past mistakes.
And it's a perfect lead-in to the next section, Fiat Lux, where knowledge begins to re-emerge, but not without bringing new challenges and dangers.
Yes, definitely new challenges, and we'll dive into those challenges next time.
Next time.
When we continue our deep dive into A Canticle for Leibowitz.
Sounds good. All right. Now we fast forward 600 years to the Age of Renaissance, as Miller calls it. It's fascinating how the Abbey's role has transformed. While they are still guardians of knowledge, they've become almost like a museum exhibit. Scholars come to study the relics, but the knowledge itself doesn't seem to have a real impact on the world outside the Abbey walls. So they've gone from being these radical protectors of knowledge in a world that shunned it, to being almost sidelined as the world rediscovers science and technology. Do you think Miller is saying something about how institutions can become irrelevant if they don't adapt to the times?
It definitely raises that question. It's as if the Abbey is clinging to the past while the rest of the world is racing towards the future. And into the scenario strides Thon Tadeo, a brilliant but rather arrogant scientist.
Oh, yeah.
He represents the resurgence of scientific inquiry, but he also embodies the potential dangers that come with it.
He's almost dismissive of the monks and their work, isn't he? He sees them as simple caretakers, not true intellectuals.
Thon Tadeo is a product of his time. He's driven by ambition and a belief that science holds the key to progress, perhaps even to solving all of humanity's problems. He embodies the allure of technology and the sense of superiority that can come with it. Think about how we sometimes see this today, with certain tech industries or even individuals believing they have all the answers.
It's like he's blinded by his own brilliance, unable to see the value in the monks' simple dedication to preservation. And this tension really comes to a head when Brother Cornhor, using those salvaged blueprints, manages to build an electric lamp.
That lamp is such a powerful symbol. It's literally a light shining in the darkness, representing the potential of rediscovering lost knowledge.
But it's also a bit tragic, right? Because for Thon Tadeo, it's just a novelty. He's already moved on to bigger, more ambitious projects, things with far greater potential for both good and evil.
Miller seems to be warning us about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Thon Tadeo is so focused on pushing the boundaries of knowledge that he fails to consider the ethical implications of his work. It makes you think about things like artificial intelligence or genetic engineering today. Are we pushing too far too fast without fully understanding the consequences?
That's a chilling thought, especially considering what happens in the third part of the book. While the monks are painstakingly piecing together scraps of the past, the world outside is descending into chaos again. It's like history is repeating itself, with humanity once again on the verge of self-destruction.
And Thon Tadeo is at the heart of it. Convinced of the inevitability of conflict, he becomes a key figure in the escalating tensions between Texarkana and the rest of the world, ultimately leading to another devastating nuclear war.
So in a way, he becomes a representation of those who believe that technology is the solution to all our problems, but end up using it for destructive purposes. It's a cautionary tale about the seductive power of knowledge and the importance of using it wisely.
Exactly. And it forces us to confront the question, can we ever truly escape the cyclical nature of history? Are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, even with the best intentions?
It's a heavy question, and one that Miller explores with such depth and nuance. The Age of Renaissance might seem like a time of progress, but under the surface, the seeds of destruction are already being sown.
And nowhere is this more apparent than in the tragic events that unfold in the final section of the book. Fiat voluntas tua.
Where the consequences of unchecked ambition and the fragile nature of knowledge are laid bare, this third part, Fiat voluntas tua, this is where it all comes crashing down. We're thrust back into a world ravaged by nuclear war, with a new threat emerging. This plague caused by the fallout, sweeping across the land.
Yeah, a haunting reminder of the long-lasting consequences of our actions. You know, the very knowledge that Thon Tadeo sought to master has now unleashed a new wave of suffering. It's like Miller is saying, look, even with the best of intentions, we can't always predict or control the outcomes of our pursuit of knowledge.
It's definitely a sobering thought.
Yeah.
And amidst this devastation, we have Mrs. Grayles, this seemingly simple woman struggling to survive and care for her sick daughter.
She's an interesting character, isn't she? Almost like a symbol of ordinary humanity, caught in the crossfire of these grand events. She's not concerned with intellectual debates or scientific progress. She just wants to protect her child.
But she also embodies a deep faith, clinging to it even as her world crumbles. It's a powerful contrast to the more intellectual struggles of the monks and the cold ambition of Thon Tadeo.
It brings us back to that question of faith's role in the face of overwhelming adversity. Does it provide solace and strength? Or does it become a crutch, preventing us from confronting reality? Miller doesn't give us easy answers. He just presents these different perspectives and lets us wrestle with them.
One of the most disturbing scenes in this section is the Green Star Relief Camp, where they're offering euthanasia to those suffering from radiation sickness. It's like they've reached a point where death is seen as the only solution.
That scene raises such challenging ethical questions. Who gets to decide when life is no longer worth living? And what happens when we start using technology to make those decisions for others? It's a theme that resonates even more strongly today as we grapple with advancements in medicine and end-of-life care.
Abbot Zurchi is horrified by what he sees at the camp. He clashes with Dr. Kors, who runs the facility, and believes in a purely pragmatic scientific approach. Zurchi sees it as a betrayal of their humanity, a violation of the sacred duty to protect life.
It's another example of that fundamental tension between faith and reason. Kors believes he's being merciful, offering a swift end to suffering. But Zurchi sees it as a slippery slope, a dangerous precedent that could lead to even greater atrocities.
And despite the chaos and despair around him, Zurchi refuses to compromise his principles. He sets up his own makeshift infirmary, offering comfort and care to the sick and dying.
It's a testament to his unwavering faith and compassion. Even in the face of annihilation, he chooses to uphold the sanctity of life.
But he's not just focused on the present. He's also desperately trying to save the memorabilia, the vast collection of knowledge that the Order has protected for centuries.
Because for Zurchi, that's the ultimate hope for the future. Even if humanity is wiped out, the knowledge they've preserved might offer a chance for a new beginning. It's a powerful belief in the enduring power of ideas, even in the face of our own mortality.
And ultimately, the abbey is destroyed. Zurchi, along with Mrs. Grayles and her daughter, they seek refuge in a fallout shelter, bringing us full circle to where the book began.
It's a poignant image, isn't it? Back to that same shelter where Brother Francis found the relics centuries earlier. It's like Miller is suggesting that no matter how far we progress, we're always in danger of falling back into the darkness.
And while trapped in the shelter, Zurchi finds a skull pierced by an arrow. It's likely one of the first monks who died protecting their knowledge during the simplification.
Wow. It's a stark reminder of the sacrifices made to preserve knowledge throughout history. Those who came before us who fought to keep the flame of civilization burning.
But it's not a completely bleak ending. We know that Brother Joshua and his group are out there somewhere, on a mission to colonize a distant planet, carrying a copy of the memorabilia with them.
Right, it's a glimmer of hope, a suggestion that even amidst destruction, there's a possibility of renewal. The cycle might repeat, but the human spirit, that drive to explore, to create, to preserve, that endures.
The book ends with Mrs. Grayle's daughter, this symbol of innocence and new life, leading Zurchi out of the darkness of the shelter. It's a powerful image, leaving us with a sense of both despair and hope.
A Canticle for Leibowitz is a book that stays with you. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the nature of knowledge and faith, and about our place in this vast sweep of history.
It's a reminder that the choices we make today will have ripple effects for generations to come. Will we use our knowledge to build a better future? Or will we succumb to the same cycles of destruction that have plagued humanity for so long? That's the question Miller leaves us pondering.
And it's a question that each of us listening now must answer for ourselves.